Moses stood before Pharaoh one final time. The air in the throne room was heavy, thick with the weight of 9 plagues that had already ravaged Egypt. The Nile had turned to blood. Frogs, lice, flies, pestilence on the livestock, boils, hail, locusts, and darkness so thick you could feel it pressing against your skin. Egypt was broken, yet Pharaoh's heart remained hard. But now, Moses spoke with a voice that carried the authority of the Almighty himself. Thus says the Lord, about midnight, I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, to the firstborn of the servant girl behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the livestock. There shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there has never been, nor ever shall be again. But against the children of Israel, not a dog shall growl, not one, that you may know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. Then all these servants of yours will come down to me and bow themselves to me, saying, Get out, and all the people who follow you. And after that, I will go. And Moses, hot with anger, turned his back on Pharaoh and walked out. The Lord had said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go out of his land. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, saying, This month shall be the beginning of months for you. On the 10th day, every man shall take a lamb without blemish, a male of the first year. Keep it until the 14th day, then kill it at twilight. Take the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and lintel of your houses. Eat the flesh that night, roasted with fire, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Eat it in haste with sandals on your feet and staff in your hand. For I will pass through Egypt that night and strike all the firstborn. Against all the gods of Egypt, I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. At midnight, the Lord struck all the firstborn in Egypt, from Pharaoh's firstborn to the captive's firstborn. A great cry arose, for not a house was without one dead. Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron by night, saying, Rise and go from my people. Take your flocks and herds, and serve the Lord. The Egyptians urged them out in haste, saying, We are all dead men. The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, 600,000 men on foot, plus children and livestock. They baked unleavened cakes, driven out with no time to spare. After 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's hosts went out from Egypt. Shalom, and may the Lord of Israel always guide you. After the Israelites leave Egypt, the Lord speaks to Moses and commands that every firstborn be set apart to him. Every first male that opens the womb among the Israelites, both human and animal, belongs to the Lord. Moses reminds the people to remember the day they came out of Egypt, the house of slavery, because it was by the strength of God's hand that they were delivered. To keep this memory alive, they are commanded to observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For 7 days they must eat bread without yeast, and on the 7th day they will hold a festival to the Lord. Moses explains that when the Lord brings them into the land promised to their ancestors, the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey, they must continue this observance every year. Parents are instructed to teach their children its meaning. When children ask why they keep these practices, they will answer that it is because of what the Lord did when he brought them out of Egypt with a mighty hand. The firstborn animals are dedicated to the Lord, and the firstborn sons are redeemed, reminding the people that God spared the children of Israel when he struck the firstborn of Egypt. When Pharaoh finally lets the Israelites go, God does not lead them by the shortest road through the land of the Philistines, because he knows the people might see war and return to Egypt. Instead, he leads them through the wilderness toward the Sea of Reeds. Moses carries the bones of Joseph with him, honoring Joseph's request made long before. As the people journey from Succoth to the edge of the wilderness, the Lord goes before them in a pillar of cloud by day to guide their path, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light. The cloud and the fire remain constantly before the people, showing that God himself is leading them on their journey. The Israelites flee Egypt after Pharaoh finally releases them, but their freedom is immediately threatened. Pharaoh changes his mind and sends his army in pursuit, with chariots and horsemen thundering across the plains. The people panic when they see themselves trapped between the vast sea ahead and the approaching army behind. Fear grips the camp, and they cry out to Moses, blaming him for bringing them to the wilderness to die. The air is tense with desperation, uncertainty, and despair. Moses stands before the people, calm and resolute, lifting his staff and speaking words of courage. Stand firm. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall see the salvation of the Lord today. The people tremble, but Moses' faith is unshakable. Then the voice of God calls to him. Why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel, that they go forward. Moses obeys. He raises his staff, stretches out his hand over the waters of the sea, and the wind begins to blow fiercely, driving back the waters. Miraculously, the sea divides, forming towering walls of water on either side and a dry path through the seabed. The Israelites step forward cautiously, then confidently, walking between the watery walls as the ground supports their every step. Behind them, Pharaoh's army pursues, and the sound of galloping hooves and rattling chariots grows louder. At dawn, Moses stretches out his hand again, and the waters crash down, swallowing the Egyptian army completely. The Israelites watch in awe and relief, realizing that God's power has delivered them. Joy and praise fill the air, and the event becomes a lasting testament to divine salvation and protection. After witnessing the destruction of Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea, the Israelites are filled with awe and gratitude. Moses leads them in a triumphant song. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Every word celebrates God's power, justice, and victory over their oppressors. The people echo his song, voices lifting in unison, praising God as the warrior who delivers and redeemer who saves. Miriam, Moses' sister, steps forward with tambourines and dance, leading the women in rejoicing. The camp reverberates with music, movement, and the exultation of liberated hearts. The journey resumes as they travel through the wilderness toward the promised lands. Soon they arrive at Marah, where they encounter water that is bitter and undrinkable. Once again, murmurs of discontent rise among the people, and fear threatens to overshadow the joy of their recent deliverance. God instructs Moses to cast a piece of wood into the water, and instantly the water becomes sweet and drinkable. Relief spreads through the camp, and the people recognize the Lord as Rofeka, the healer who provides in the wilderness. This experience reinforces their dependence on God, who delivers both from enemies and from the hardships of travel. The Israelites move onward to Elim, an oasis of 12 springs and 70 palm trees, a place of rest and replenishment. Here, God demonstrates that provision and protection come hand in hand, that trust and obedience are rewarded, and that praise follows salvation. The Song of the Sea continues to resonate in their hearts, becoming a foundation for faith, hope, and remembrance of God's power and mercy in all circumstances. As the Israelites journey deeper into the wilderness, hunger sets in. Their stomachs ache and complaints begin to spread. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die here in the desert? There we had plenty of food to eat. Tension rises, and murmurs of discontent threaten to overwhelm the community. God speaks to Moses, saying, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. Each day, gather as much as you need, an omer per person, to sustain you. Take only what is necessary, for I test whether you will walk in my law." At evening, quail appear in abundance, settling over the camp and providing rich meat for the people to eat. As dawn breaks, a mysterious, thin white substance, like frost on the ground, covers the desert floor. This is manna, the miraculous bread from heaven, offering sustenance for every man, woman, and child. The Israelites gather the manna daily, learning that God provides precisely what is needed. Some disobey and attempt to store excess, but it spoils by morning, demonstrating the importance of obedience and trust. God establishes a rhythm of provision, instruction, and rest. On the 6th day, the Israelites gather twice as much, so that the 7th day, the Sabbath, may be holy, a day of rest in recognition of God's care. Each morning the manna appears. Each evening the quail arrives. This pattern reinforces divine reliability, teaches trust in God's timing, and establishes a sacred rhythm of work and rest. The Israelites learn to rely on God daily, discovering that their obedience, patience, and faith ensure their survival and shape their spiritual formation as a community dependent on divine provision. The Israelites continue their journey through the wilderness and arrive at Rephidim. Once again, they face a challenge. There is no water for the people to drink. Thirst spreads quickly, and murmurs begin, echoing the complaints of the previous chapters. The people quarrel with Moses, asking, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die here of thirst?" Tension rises, fear spreads, and the community feels trapped. Moses turns to God for guidance. God instructs him to take his staff, the very staff used in the Red Sea miracle, and strike a specific rock at Horeb. Moses obeys. He strikes the rock with his staff, and water gushes forth in abundance. The people drink and are refreshed, their fear replaced by gratitude. God names this place Massa and Meribah, meaning testing and quarreling, a lasting reminder that trust in the Lord sustains them even in times of doubt and trial. Shortly after, the Israelites face another test, this time from human enemies. The Amalekites attack from the rear, seeking to exploit their fatigue and vulnerability. Moses commands Joshua to choose men to fight, and they engage in battle. Meanwhile, Moses ascends a nearby hill, holding the staff of God in his hands. Whenever he raises his hands, Israel gains the advantage. When he lowers them, Amalek prevails. Seeing this, Aaron and Hur support Moses' hands, one on each side, ensuring they remain raised until sunset. By evening, Joshua defeats the Amalekites with the sword. God instructs Moses to write this event as a memorial and promises that he will utterly blot out Amalek from memory. The chapter concludes with Israel learning that victory depends not only on human effort, but also on faith, prayer, and divine intervention. The people witness firsthand that God's guidance, provision, and power are essential for survival, sustenance, and triumph over every challenge in their journey to the Promised Land. Moses sat on the ground in the heart of the Israelite camp, one hand raised as he spoke to the people. His voice carried across the tents, telling the story of their deliverance from Egypt, the plagues, the crossing of the Red Sea, and God's guiding hand. Children leaned forward, eyes wide, absorbing every word, while adults and elders listened attentively, nodding in recognition of the hardships and miracles that had brought them to this place. At the edge of the camp, Pharaoh's officials watched silently, observing the people's faith and order with wary eyes. Their presence was a reminder of the oppression they had once enforced, though now they could not touch the Israelites. Throughout the morning, men and women approached Moses with questions, disputes, and concerns. His raised hand calmed them patiently, and his measured words explained the laws and principles of justice. It became clear to the elders that Moses alone could not bear the burden of leadership indefinitely. Just as the sun reached its peak, a caravan appeared on the horizon, raising dust behind camels and servants. Jethro, priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law, arrived with his family, carrying gifts and observing the camp. He saw Moses teaching the people and children, noticing the strain on his face. Calmly, he advised. What you are doing is not good. You will wear yourself out, and the people too. Appoint capable, God-fearing men to lead smaller groups so only the most difficult matters come to you. Moses listened and acted. He selected trustworthy men to judge disputes for smaller groups, sharing the responsibility. Peace returned to the camp. The people were organized, and Moses' burden was lightened. Jethro blessed the Lord for his guidance and departed, leaving the Israelites strengthened under God's wisdom, ready to continue their journey with faith and order restored. The Israelites arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai, their journey through the wilderness finally leading them to the towering cliffs and jagged peaks that seemed to pierce the sky. Thousands of tents stretched across the desert valley, and the wind stirred cloth and dust alike. Children stared in awe at the massive mountain, while adults set up camp, preparing for whatever lay ahead. Moses climbed the rocky slopes of Sinai, staff in hand, robes moving with the desert wind. A halo of sunlight broke through the clouds behind him, hinting at the divine presence that awaited at the summit. Below, the camp grew quiet as he disappeared from view, leaving the people to await his return with anticipation. Storm clouds began to gather, distant thunder echoing across the desert. Moses approached the mountain crest as glowing light formed within the swirling clouds, signaling that something immense and holy was awakening. When he returned to the camp, he addressed the assembled tribes, raising his hand, his eyes reflecting both sunlight and divine purpose. Thousands of faces turned upward, listening to the covenant God was about to make with his people. Families prepared for purification, washing garments near water basins, while men placed stones and ropes to establish a sacred boundary around the mountain. Twilight fell over the encampment, fires flickering, and the tension of the coming revelation settled over every heart. Lightning flashed, and smoke began to rise from the summit. A trumpet sounded, unearthly and powerful, echoing across the valley, and the mountain seemed to come alive with divine presence. The people trembled in awe and fear, yet Moses stood resolute, guiding them with calm authority. The covenant was about to be revealed, a sacred law that would shape the nation, and all watched with reverence, their lives forever bound to the voice of God at Mount Sinai.